Hi, parents. I know that Zoom is an awesome tool for our students, but there are often families that don't get a chance to attend. So I wanted to go ahead right now and make a quick video that will showcase some of the things that we were talking about when we were talking about making reading 3D. As we were talking, there are a couple of things that we're going to do. Number one, as a teacher, I like to follow the pattern I do, we do, you do. So I'm going to show you the way that I would have done it first, and then the students were able to do it with me who attended the Zoom meeting. But then the last step is to do it yourself. So if you're looking for a project at home to go ahead and make your reading really, really 3D, pop out of the book, that's what we're talking about. One of the things that education calls this is the Bloom's taxonomy, which means that we're going to start from the basic questions and we're going to work our way up. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer this to us sharing a screen together. And you can go ahead and see my PowerPoint as we continue on. So the first thing that we talked about was making reading 3D, which is of course the title of this presentation. The second thing that we're going to talk about is we have a story. So in any book that you read, this is just a shorter version, so that way I can kind of give you an idea. There was a story that we read together as a class, and it says, let me go to live and go to the big view for this one. It says, 3, 2, 1. Once there was a troll who lived under a bridge. Every day he scared people. That is what his father told him to do. That is what all trolls do. Troll yelled and people ran away. Good job, said his father. But Troll was still very sad. He was a lonely job. No one ever talks to me. No one ever smiles, he said. Of course not, said his father. You are a troll. No one will smile at you. When Troll heard this, he sat under the bridge and thought that he would never move again. And now this story does go a little bit further, but I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward to that. There are 4 different types of ladder that you can do today. Okay, the first ladder that we're going to be practicing is characters. The second ladder that we're going to be practicing is plot. The third ladder that we're going to be practicing is story elements. And the fourth and final is comprehension. Comprehension is probably the most simple, and the other 3 are a little bit more complex ideas. So a ladder looks like this. We start from the bottom rung. We start with the things that we already know. So we already know how to recall the plot. We already know how to summarize. So when I think about the story that I just read to you guys, who was the somebody? The somebody was the troll. What did he want? Well, he didn't want to scare people. But what happened, and those are summarizing skills that your child can apply to any book that they read. The next step that you're going to do, the next rung up on the letter, or on the ladder, is to illustrate. So go ahead and take a second and illustrate. With our Zoom meeting, what I was able to do was draw this beautiful little picture here that's up in the top corner. It says, why do I have to be scary? So that's our second step on our ladder. First we recall, then we illustrate. Then our next step up, even more difficult thinking, is evaluate. Can you compare this book to another book? And do you like this story more or less? So really start thinking and formulating your own opinions. Our highest step on our ladder, which is going to be the thing that requires the most creativity but also helps us learn it the best, is to design another setting for this book. How would it affect the outcome? So now, as our students were talking on Zoom, we started to think about, okay, what is another setting that this could take place? Some of the kids said, well, I've been trapped in my house for days. What about if there was a troll in my house? How would this story be the same if I had a troll in my house? How would it be different? Another way that we can do it is we could look into a hospital. A lot of people have been in hospitals recently. How would everything be different if we had, let's say, a troll living in a hospital? This story would change. And as we look into that, we start to realize how important both characters and the setting are and how they work together. So that's one of the ladders that you could do, is that you could end up, after you take the beginning steps, you can end up at the top with a create, how to design another setting for this book. Okay, and that could be done in pictures, that can be represented however you want to. And the representation is important, but the thinking and the connection between recalling, illustrating, evaluating, and creating, that is the most important aspect of this. So that again has to do with plot. That is our plot ladder. Another ladder that we have is character. So Again, we're going to start with recall, illustrate, evaluate, and create. So recall, define the physical appearance of the main characters. So what do they look like? That means that we have to either go back in the text or we have to remember. Illustrate, what's one thing that the character does that shows who they are as a person? So maybe you want to draw a picture of a troll who's talking and he's just so sad because he's trying to make some friends. Okay, that's your illustrate. Then we have our evaluate. So compare this character to another book. Who do you like more or less? You know, if you've seen the movie Trolls recently, you might think that the trolls in that movie are a little bit happier than this guy. So maybe that's something that you want to look into. Our last step on our ladder, our highest step, the hardest thing that we can do is that we can design a friend for the character of the book that you read. Now, we have to start to think, what do friends have in common? What do friends have that are different about each other? We're going to take what we just read, we're going to take the character and we're going to apply it to the highest level of thinking, which is creating somebody that is a great friend to our character. So once again, we got our plot ladder over here. Now we've talked about the character ladder. You can design a friend however you want to. One of the students talked about maybe even using a balloon to draw a little smiley face. And now that's great, but why is a balloon a good character or is a good friend for our main character, the troll? I don't know, his ears are kind of pokey. He might end up poking the balloon and breaking it. So they would have to be really careful of each other, which means that the troll would have to be very considerate. Is he considerate? Okay, so those are the things to think about. Our final ladder that we're going to talk about today is story elements. And again, we have those same 4 steps, starting with very simple and moving towards more complex. Recall, what's the big problem? Okay, now we're going to illustrate it. How, maybe make it look like a comic book. How does the character solve their problem? Evaluate. Could you solve the problem any better? That's a good question. Have you ever read a story where you think, if I was the main character, I would have just done this and this? That would have been so much easier. Our last step, our highest step, the hardest thing that we can do is design a different ending to this book that still solves the problem. Okay, so we took it from evaluating, I'm thinking, is there a better solution, to, hey, I've made a better solution and now I'm going to demonstrate it. Maybe it's with puppets, or maybe it's with pictures, writing even. There are many ways that you can demonstrate that, but you're going to want to go ahead and move to that highest level of creation. And then, I'm sorry, this is actually the last one, comprehension. So a way that we can practice our comprehension is, again, with these 4 steps. The first being recall, when did the main conflict begin? Then you can illustrate, hey, what did the scene look like when the problem first became an issue? Evaluate, what was the funniest or the saddest part of the story? Wait, why did I feel that this was the funniest part of the story? Why did I feel that this was the part that made me feel the most sad? And then our hardest level that we're going to get to is create. So design a second book that uses the same characters who have to solve a new problem, or use the same characters to continue to solve the same problem. In our book, in our story that we read, we realized that the troll did not have any friends because he was ugly. Maybe though, in the second book, in my creation, I could decide that maybe it's not about how he looks on the outside. Maybe it's about who he is as a person, and he has to learn some lessons that way. Okay, this is a great way for you to implement morals and themes, as well as give your children some creative outlet for maybe a problem that they're having with a sibling. You know, some of my best writing happens with things that I'm very passionate about. So why don't you go ahead and create an alternate ending to address this person's problem? Why don't you go ahead and create an alternate ending to this fight with your sibling? You can actually create an alternate ending to just about any book that you read. And in this case, I think that this is a really, really good way to take your reading from just something that is on a page to something that interacts with your real life. Where could you adjust a situation to make it better? Maybe it's quarantine, whatever it happens to be. This create right here is really, really powerful. Create the next step in your book. Create, move it into the real world. Okay. Last but not least, I wanted to show, so with our create step, we can go ahead and demonstrate our creation in multiple ways. One of the ways that we can do it is by drawing a picture, making a video, acting out a play with our friends and family, making dolls or puppets, or using Powtoon. And that was something that I was able to use and show to the students, but I will have to do that on a different video. The last thing that I'll say is this: if you or your child have a create and you are just so proud of it, you guys have taken a story, whatever book it is that you read, and you have gone ahead and done one of the create activities, you can go and please send it to me. My email is rachel.mabe, M-A-B-E, at clevelandmetroschools.org. It is spelled like it sounds. Or you can message me on Dojo. Either one of those are great ways for you to go ahead and share these create moments. If you share them to me by Friday, I will go ahead and share them on the school Instagram so that we can show how creative the Harper Panthers really are. All right, well, I hope that you have a great day, and thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.